To our council meeting this morning on a very cold day. Could I please just remind everyone that the meeting is live streamed, and please turn off your mobile phones and just pop them away. Indicate to me if you need to take a break to answer any message. And before we begin today, I'd just like to congratulate councillors and the Chief Executive for the award that we won at the Property Council. It was for the health facility. So it was the Children's Health Hub and Te Aka Māori. And it was a thrill to be there with the chair of our DHB, to be able to go up and receive the award. And Portia was pretty excited too. It was a huge function. And to win that for an innovation in health facilities was very affirming. So well done, everybody. It was just lovely to be there. Now I would ask everyone to stand and invite Councillor Stewart to open our hui.
Kia ora koutou katoa. E te atua kaharawa ko koe te tohu rangatira, te tohu mautaranga, manaki mai mātou a pononga e tēnei rā, e mahi nei e te mātou mahi, o te painga o ngā tangata, o te kaunihira o Rotorua. Tā kua mai kia tau te marangi Māori e, ki rongo I a mātou I ngā wā katoa. Ko ihu karaiti hoki te mātou āriki, Āmeni. Almighty God, who alone is the leader of all mankind and the fountain of all knowledge, send thy blessing upon us, your servants, this day, as we strive to do things good for the betterment of the people of the Rotorua district. May we be tolerant in ourselves at all times, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Now I call for any apologies, and I need a mover and a seconder that the apology from Councillor Maxwell be accepted. Moved Councillor Rotorua, seconded Councillor Stewart. There are no further apologies. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, carried. Are there any declarations of interest? There appear to be none. Are there any urgent items not on the agenda? There appear to be none. We move now to the confirmation of the council minutes. The minutes on page 8 in your order paper. The minutes of the council meeting 30th of May. Do I have a mover? Councillor Donaldson, seconded. Councillor Tapsell.
Your Worship, can I move an amendment to that, please?
Certainly. Would you like to speak to the amendment?
Thank you. As you're aware, at the last council meeting I tabled a document. I did earlier this week, when we received the agenda, ask the Chief Executive why the document was not fixed to this current agenda. The official response I got back says that there appears to be some confusion with the process here. The minutes of the last council meeting has your submission attached, and the minutes are published on the council website. When an agenda is published that contains the minutes of the last meeting, the attachments are not duplicated again in the agenda, as they have been previously distributed as outlined above. Now, I have some issues with that. The first issue I have with that is never before in 6 years have I had to go to the council website to look at the agenda I'm supposed to be approving. And this is not the first document that I have tabled. Secondly, we have here a technicality in that if we approve the minutes as before us, they do not include the attachment, even though they refer to it. So technically, these would become the true and correct minutes. Therefore, technically, that document could disappear off the face of the earth. So, thinking about it, it does not make common sense to have different versions of documents floating around the place. It's not efficient. And I draw your attention to one very glaring example of the strife that's caused, and that's the Treaty of Waitangi. And I think in this case, that we need in future to ensure that any table document is included as part of the agenda. And to fix this in the very simplest way at this point, I'm suggesting that we amend the resolution to say that the minutes, together with its listed attachments, are a true and correct record, which then recognises the attachment that is on the website but isn't here. Thank you.
Or debate. Una, I wonder, before we have debate, this is a point that does need clarification, and it's been a point of some discussion, actually. So could you just clarify that in terms of our standing orders and protocol?
So what we have done here is we have followed the process that we do for every set of minutes and for every agenda. The minutes are a standalone document, and if you go to the council website, the council minutes of the last meeting, of which the document was tabled, are included in that. Today is the agenda for today's council meeting, of which the item on the agenda is purely to receive those minutes as a true and correct record. We have not done for a number of years carry forward all attachments or tabled items from the previous minutes into the next agenda. Couple of reasons for that is, again, I reiterate, the minutes are a standalone document and are on the website. Those minutes and whatever's attached are not actually part of now this agenda, apart from the receiving of the minutes. And also it is a saving in terms of duplication and size of agenda in that. But that's me just outlining the process. Okay. You have a motion on the table.
We have a motion that we are able to discuss and debate. Councillor Sturt.
I just have clarification because it refers on under 4. It says Councillor Kent spoke to the item on tabled as notes, in brackets attachment 1. So the first thing I did, because I hadn't seen attachment 1, which was tabled at the meeting but not circulated to all members, I tried to find where attachment 1 was. So taking on board what Una's just finished saying, so attachment 1 is on the website.
It's published.
Okay, that's as long as it's recorded, but I still think that the motion and the amendment that Councillor Kent and I have put needs to be amended to say that the minutes and the attachments that are recorded are approved, because otherwise in later date that attachment 1 could be removed and no one would know anything about it.
Yes.
That's a problem I've got. So can we just get that tidied up?
I think it does need clarifying.
Can I just clarify? Those minutes are now a public record and they will not disappear. So the attachments, which is attached to the minutes and now on the website, will stay there.
Councillor.
Yeah. Your Worship, as a mover, I'm quite happy with that.
Second. Yep. Councillor Rotorua.
Yes, Madam Chair. I quite like the explanation given by Una. We get the attachments when they come up through the various standing committees. I certainly don't want another job lot attached to my council minutes. So I'm happy with the explanation given and the process that we have right now. Thank you.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you look at some of the other minutes, for example, on page 17, you will see that under 3.1, documents which aren't included are specifically mentioned as and listed as part of the minute, right? Now, we've got a scenario here that, for example, if a document was actually tabled and confidential, where would that go? Because it wouldn't be on the website, would it?
No.
So are we going to have different rules for different things? I personally believe that the simple solution is any table document should appear affixed to the agenda for approval as the minutes, because that's the simplest way to proceed. However, as I say, I believe staff are opening themselves to potential problems.
Is there anyone else wants to speak to the amendment? Councillor Hunt?
I just wonder if there was a link put, as there is highlighted on page 17, then that directs those reading it online to go straight to it. It directs anyone else to put it in, and that covers that, because I do know that for those, and we don't print many agendas, but in the past, the reprinting, exactly, Councillor Sturt, was enormous. So I think an electronic link should suffice.
So that means you talked, Councillor Kent, about your amendment was that the minutes together with the listed attachment. Do you want...
That's one way, Your Worship. The other way would be to just include a pointer to that document on the website as a note. That would be an alternative. I'd be quite happy with that, and if that was to go ahead, I would withdraw the amendment.
Thank you. Una, could you just clarify that we can do that?
Yes, we can do that.
So I accept the withdrawal of the amendment, but this is the way forward, really. Do you wish to comment?
For today.
Amended. Yeah. So we have got a seconder, for the amendment. Yes. So do you want the amendment up there? Or you?
There is no amendment.
There is no amendment, right. So we now put that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 30th of May 2019 be confirmed as a true and accurate record. I'm just wondering what we're going to put to council. The amendment that...
Your Worship, the issue raised by Councillor Kent was included, and it is now included as up there. So the amended motion, the mover and seconder are happy with it. So, yes. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Kent, for being pedantic.
That we receive the report, recommendations from other committees. Councillor Hunt, seconded Councillor Bentley. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Now I need a mover, we'll take them separately, that the following recommendations of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee held on the 13th of June be adopted. The first recommendation, road safety and speed limits around rural schools. That Council approve the officers undertake a comprehensive road safety review, including posted speed limits assessments around all rural schools, and report to Council with its findings and recommendations. Moved, Councillor Rotorua, seconded Councillor Gould. Is there any discussion? There appears to be none, other than to note that we were impressed by those that came and spoke to Council. So all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Move to the second recommendation. The recommendation 1, these are staff reports now. Yeah, the hearing panel recommendations, Waikawo, Hunters Bay Reserve Management Plan. Yeah, it's been moved and it's in the staff report. Yep, we did. Now we move to staff report. Do I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report, hearing panel recommendations, Waikawa, Hannahs Bay Reserve Management Plan be received? Thank you. Seconded Councillor Gould. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And you've got the report, Henry. Are you going, oh, you're going to speak to it, Rob, thank you. Included in this stuff.
Sorry, Your Worship, just in the order of the agenda, I thought I heard you say we'll take the recommendations one at a time. So we did the one on the speed limits, but I haven't, I see in the agenda a recommendation 2 regarding the alternative methods for delivery of wastewater. And then there is yeah, that's got 6 points to it. Thank you. Understand.
We'll pick that up in the staff reports. So we move now to the Hannes Bay Reserve Management Plan. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Your Worship, and kia ora koutou, Council. Very briefly, if we could just take a few minutes, we'll quickly run through a little bit of the why, and then Julianne Wilkinson here will explain the process, and then we'll be open to any questions around what's happened with this reserve management plan. So, as you'll know, all reserves under the Reserves Act are required to have a reserve management plan. The previous management plan for this reserve is included in the Council's Urban Reserve, which is actually Urban Reserve Management Plan, and for this reserve is getting particularly out of date and was giving poor guidance in terms of a lot of queries and questions that we were getting around what could happen on the reserve. And in addition to this, the reserve, since that management plan was prepared, has received a special reserve classification under the Affiliate Te Arawa, Iwi and Hapu Claims Settlement Act that adds protection principles to the reserve that were not represented in that original plan. So these factors highlighted the need to review the reserve management plan for Waikowao Hannes Bay. And in 2018, Council entered into a memorandum of understanding with Ngāti Unuku Kaupako and Ngāti Tiroro o Tirangi to work together in partnership to review the plan, giving better effect to the protection principles of the Special Reserve classification and reflect the role of iwi in the reserve management plan. So that's a little bit of the why we've addressed this one, and Julianne will give a quick rundown of what's happened since that.
Thank you, kia ora koutou. So the process we undertook to review the reserve management plan and inform the draft was we developed a steering group to review the existing plan and identify a process. The representatives on that group were Ngāti Unuku Kaupako and Te Roro o Te Rangi, so Paroni Parika and Nereha Parika, Tātou Pounamu, which some of you may know as the Eastside Community Collective, with Ralph Mosen, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the fact that Ralph's wife passed last night, and so obviously we don't have any representatives here today, but I'm sure they would have been here if they could have been. We also had the Makuea Community Association with Lee Richards and the Holdens and Hannes Bay Ratepayers Association with Shirley Perry. That steering group established a process for engagement to inform the draft management plan, which included a number of items, and we went out with those in August of 2018. We connected with existing stakeholders of the reserve, including DOC, Bay of Plenty Regional Council, Horse and Pony Club, Hannes Bay Restoration Trust, and the wider Holdens and Hannes Bay Ratepayers Association. We also undertook a number of community engagement initiatives, including letter drops, advertising in the Makuea Association newsletter, the newspaper, and we connected through schools and did some specific engagement with the schools on the east side. We included website, obviously Council's website through the Kōrero Mai portal and Facebook page. We held a really successful community day at the reserve, and we also put specific signage up on the reserve which directed people to the website and our Facebook page if they wanted to have comment on that. From there, a draft plan was developed and adopted by the SPNF Committee for consultation, and committee recommendation approved by Council in March. A hearings panel was also appointed, which included Councillor Sturt, Councillor Tapsell, Councillor Hunt as the chair, Phil Thomas and Eugene Berryman-Camp. The consultation using a similar process to the initial engagement was undertaken, so the draft plan was publicly notified for submissions on the 1st of April. The submissions closed on the 31st of May and we received 7 submissions to the draft plan and no requests to be heard by the hearings panel. The hearings panel deliberated on submissions on the 10th of June, so thank you to the panel for that. And from there, some recommendations were made to make some changes to the draft plan, which is included in your appendices. And we're ready for the plan to be approved. Thank you.
Just any questions from those of us that weren't involved in the process? Councillor Kent?
Thank you, Your Worship. I know one of the recommendations was the changing of the name to the Waikawa / Hannes Bay Reserve. I point out that there are several instances within the document where it hasn't been changed, so that just needs checking. But my real question relates to page, oops, can't find it. Page with the flow diagram on it. I'd just like to ask what language YE is.
It's a big document. Can we just try to find it?
Sorry, page 37?
Yep.
37?
That's a simple answer to that question. I just think when the document's been put together and it's been transposed, the letter S has been missed off the word yes. So we'll correct that. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question? It's interesting to me, after that extensive consultation, we didn't receive submissions. Do you think this is the way of the future, really, about engagement with the right affected parties?
I think in answer to that question, we put a lot of pre-work in with the steering group and connecting with the stakeholders. And I think from that and the engagement we did with the community informed the draft really well. Yeah. And so therefore we didn't receive many submissions to the draft plan.
And just a question, but I know that Councillor Tapsell, if she was on it, would have taken note of it. We were all concerned about the lake margins with adverse weather events. Has that been addressed in the reserve plan? Because of the flooding that happens and then we break down the wall?
Yeah, so not specifically addressed in the plan, other than one of the main points in the plan is to cater for the environment. Yep. Obviously it's a key component within the plan, so we'll address that as part of the general management.
I just want to, on behalf of the community and yourself and the councillors around this table, thank the team for the work that they did. I went out to the open day and it was just mind-boggling from 9 o'clock through till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The place was packed. Now, the thing that I had to get my head around was, and Councillor Hunt led us through the process, is that this draft management plan that we are approving today is on the legal side of things. The actual operation and what goes into the park and into the reserve and the issues that Councillor Tapsell raised and many of the submitters raised, that's why we never got submissions, because they've already had a say in what they want in the park, which is a different issue to this. This is the legalese side of things, where the operational management of the reserve is a separate thing, it's your intention to engage those people on the working party through those issues. So that's where a lot of the community people who would have normally, as your comment said, made a submission, they realise that will come later. So I just thought I'd clarify that, because Councillor Hunt pointed that out to us, that we're dealing with the actual legalese under the Reserves Act, etc. Yeah.
May just add to that. I think when the community feel heard, as they have obviously done in this case, then the sort of submissions they put in, when they see it being reflected in the draft plan, then they're comfortable that the ongoing consultation is a given. The relationships have been established. They know when it gets down to the operational aspect, then they will be consulted further and brought along and worked with in their own environment. So this is the governing document for that reserve, and that was what Councillor Sturt was referring to. It isn't about the actual operations and who does what when. It is the guiding document for that, and it was a really good process.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to congratulate the staff on what I think is a very readable document. It's been very, very well put together.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When you see a management plan such as this, and it goes into the history of the reserve, it really brings home the contribution of the tangata whenua to our city. And I read with interest the history, and then, of course, later on, the taking of some further acres for the airport, and all around our city and district, the contribution that has been made by the iwi, by Te Arawa, to give for the benefit of the citizens of this city. And here we have history that again reinforces that as well. So just seem to want to acknowledge those people from Onuku Kopako and Te Rotorua for their contribution. Thank you.
We'll extend our feelings to Ralph Mosen and the hapu. I want to congratulate you because as I can see from this whole process of our hearings panel and then that wider consultation is very different to how it used to be. You've got two products that have come out that I know those communities are feeling so much better listened to. One is Hamurana and Hannah's Bay. So congratulations. And it's been an inclusive process that's involved those that are most affected by that space. And this is the way that we want to see we work in this council. So well done. Are there any further questions? Well, I'm going to put the vote. All those in favour of that the report, that pursuant to section 41(1) of the Reserves Act 1977, Council adopts the hearings panel's recommendations identified in attachment 3 as final amendments to the Waikawa Hannahs Bay Reserve Management Plan. Move, thank you. Second, Councillor Hunt. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Well done. A huge process. Now we move to recommendation 2, the adoption of the annual plan, page 84. I need a mover and a seconder to receive the report, that the report adopt the annual plan 2019-2020 be received. Thank you, Councillor Rokawa Tate. Seconded, Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. And now we ask you to speak, or I'm not sure what you're going to do, Thomas.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we did talk about this quite in depth at last week's SPNF meeting. So I will take the report as read and obviously answer any questions that the members may have. Just again, if you have found any typos or grammar error issues, just feed them back to Una and myself after the meeting, and we're more than happy to take care of those at that appropriate time.
Thank you. So we open for questions on the annual plan. Are there any questions? Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are some of those images in that report going to be changed to be correct? Namely, the lakefront had an old image, plus also the museum had a picture of a person with a dog. I didn't know we changed the rules for letting dogs into the
so you want the images
area
updated, Councillor
Yes.
Gould. Fair enough. And do you want the image without the fence?
I want the image without the dog.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes, Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, what I do like about the report is the detail that's gone into, Thomas, in terms of the targeted rates for capital costs of sewerage, of the different sewerage schemes. It quite clearly points out what the responsibilities are, so that if anyone, in the business that I'm in, wants to see what the commitment for a particular area is, they can go to the website or enter this document and see exactly what their commitments are. And I find it very, very, very thorough and very user-friendly. That's the word better. It's user-friendly in terms of what your commitments are in terms of water, refuse, sewerage, the general rate, etc., etc. And I note that with the 4.9, that in the residential, the average rate increase at 4.9% is $2.50 a week, which I think is pretty sustainable with most households. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any comments? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have to actually congratulate Thomas this time round. This is the first time.
Oh, goodness.
Can we have that written there?
Don't get carried away, Thomas. This is actually the first annual plan in 6 years that I have to support. And the reason I support that is not because of what's in the long-term plan, which I did not agree with, but this is the first annual plan where staff having been thrown a challenge to actually reduce the rates below the level forecast of the long-term plan, they actually achieved it. And to that I congratulate them. So based on that, I'm quite happy to move to.
Thank you for signalling that. Councillor Hunt.
I'll second that as well, but also I'd just like to refer to the readability of this particular annual plan. I did have a word to our in-house designer, Sally, and said how much easier I found it to read, and I know anyone who is able to use the online format, and I know that's not everybody, but for those that do, they can find very quickly where they live, what applies to them, some diagrams of wastewater, of all of those sorts of things, which people are particularly interested in finding their own and seeing themselves reflected in here. And I really do congratulate the staff for putting a document together that is heralding to the community the quality of documents that we do produce and that we give out to the community. And any feedback from them, I hope, will come through. I'm sure there are a few odd typos which someone will pick up if there are any in there, but I really did want to congratulate staff for an extremely easy document to navigate, because at the end of the day, the community want to be able to find their house, what it means to them, where they live, what sort of services they get, and any of the background of the sorts of things that we're doing. So thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak? Well, I do. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bentley. I couldn't see your hand, sorry.
Yes, I'm quite a long way away. I can't agree with the long-term plan at all. I don't see any aim at repaying debt. I don't see where the museum sits in relation to other projects.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We're not talking about the long-term plan, we're talking about the annual plan, and if I recall correctly, Councillor Bentley actually voted in favour of the long-term plan anyway, so why is he bringing it up now?
Have you never changed your mind in your life before, Councillor Kent?
Point of order was absolutely correct. We're not talking about the long-term plan. We're talking about the annual plan. Councillor Gould. No, he doesn't.
You asked for questions before, that was fine. So are we allowed to speak on the annual plan now, Madam Chair?
Yes, if there are no further questions.
Okay.
Before I put the motion.
I wasn't here last year at the long-term plan, but I'm going to speak on the annual plan, which is in the document today. My reason is that I feel that the museum should be treated urgently. We know it's going out to the planning stage at the moment by the architects. Then it goes out to the tender process. We won't receive a tender for that project until about October, November this year. Then we'll know how much the museum costs, which will give us an indication in the annual plan as whether some projects can be proceeded after that cost comes in or whether they have to be deferred. The example is like the Howard Morrison Centre. We accepted a quote for 6.5 for earthquake. Then when we got the quote in, it came to 12.5. So I'm concerned that the tender for the museum is going to be high. We've announced yesterday that the Fletcher building isn't now in the market for construction, which would be good for Rotorua's business. Also the farming sector, they're not happy with 5.1% increase for farming. You know, they've advised that most farms are over the 3.9 value, so all their farming sector people are going to be facing a 5.1% increase. They've also got issues with PC1 and PC10, but the farming sector at the moment is going through a
Point
cash
of
flow.
order. That's not something that we discuss in the annual plan.
I'm just saying that the farming community, Madam Chair, does not accept a 5.1% increase. They will, I believe that a lot of farmers will accept a 2 to 3% rate increase. The retired people are having to look at breaking their deposits to pay for the rates. The government rate, the Reserve Bank rate, yesterday they're talking about reducing it from 1.5 to less than that, which means that those older people who've got deposits at the bank, when they come up for renewal, will get less income. So it means they're going to have to break more of their deposits to pay for council rates.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, could I just raise a point of order? Yes. That in the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting, we've had a lot of discussion. We've had the really heavy-duty discussion around the issues that you're raising, and they were very valid, and we discussed them significantly at that time, Councillor Gould. So it just surprises me that you would raise them again at this meeting.
Today is voting on adopting the annual plan. It is not redebating, as Councillor Rotorua Tate has pointed out, not redebating the issues that we debated as a committee of the whole.
I'd like to point out that at Councillor Rotorua Tate's committee meeting, I voted against the 4.9% rate increase. My name was not recorded in the minutes, which have been previously shown in today's report. And I'll be voting against the annual plan process because I feel that people of Rotorua are missing out on some basic services.
I'm not. Levels of service were also well discussed within the financial strategy. Well discussed. Councillor Sturt?
But ironically, I stand with my colleague Councillor Rotorua Tate. I thought the debate that we've had up till now has been very robust, and when we had the different workshops on the annual plan, etc., we gave a clear instruction to the staff of what our expectation was. They've come back and they've delivered that expectation on the money. But I want to, I think, Councillor Gould, you need to accentuate the positive. Not a mention or a congratulations to the Mayor, who got $10 million from the Lotteries Fund for the redevelopment of the Art and History Museum. Not a mention of anything positive in terms of some of the money that some of our staff are getting to make sure that these projects, under the guise of partnerships that we around this table have all been fighting for, Councillor Kumar and myself with the skate park, we've got people clamouring over our staff to come in behind us and to fund that. And our expectation jointly is that that does not cost the ratepayers a cent. But Madam Chair, as I looked through these documents, and that's why I felt that they were quite transparent, and Councillor Okawa-Tate was quite right, we had the full debate at committee level. The $2.50 a week rate increase for the average property at 5% is $2.50 a week. And to say that these are huge increases, they are under what we had signalled in the LTP. So I think the time is now for us to put those debates aside. We win some, we lose some. On some things we've won and some things we've lost. But overall, I think it's sending a very clear message to the community that Rotorua is open for business, that we've got a growth strategy, that we're after creating strong partnerships with our community, with iwi, with all sectors of our community, and we are moving forward as a council. So I implore my colleagues to support the motion moved by Councillor Kent and Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Councillor Kent, and then Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to correct Councillor Gould's figures. He quoted that the farming was facing 5.1%. If he cares to look at page 115, he will see that the farming community rate increase ranges from 3.7 to 5.1, and that the average rate increase is 4.8, which is actually below the average 4.9. So please get your figures right.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Councillor Kent, let's look at page 116. It shows at 5.1% for farming over $3.9 million.
Point of order. We're not arguing pedantic points of difference.
It's a range.
It is all in our annual plan, and it is a range, and the table is all here. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship. I sort of think we've strayed into the next agenda item, which is the setting of the rates, but I too support the annual plan. I support the comments of my colleague, Councillor Sturt, that it comes in with a rate increase below the what was in the LTP, that there was a clear message that Rotorua needed to invest for its future. The fact that we've applied a discount for the PAN charge for large holders of PAN charges, hotels. We're looking for investment in the hotel space desperately, because Rotorua needs to find another 500 hotel beds to meet future tourist demand. The Hotel Owners Association have recently established themselves and are aware of that and acknowledge that and are fully in support. I think the rate burden is, if we're getting into a discussion on the rates, is well spread, and you know, residential urban is pretty much on a par with farming. So I think the burden is very fairly spread across the community, and as I say, it's below what was in the LTP, which had strong support. So I'm fully in support.
Thank you. I wish to speak in support. I think it's a very clear annual plan, and it does build on the long-term plan, and that's well set out earlier about our goals and our objectives with Vision 2030. It also is very clear about the museum, the Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre, pensioner housing and the aquatic centre, and also our environmental sustainability and our growth aspirations. What's not to like about where we as a district are heading? I get nothing but positive affirmation wherever I go, and I would be the most active moving around the community about we can't believe where this district, not the city, the district is going. And it's under your council leadership as a team. We had a plan, we're moving along towards it. Another that I think we're failing to understand when we went out with the exceptions this year. It was really interesting to me. We hoped that we'd get lots of people turning up to the workshops that we held. But actually, we got people that wanted to converse, and also ask questions, and some of them are in the room today, and we really appreciate that. So that forum needs still to be had, but the majority of people just said, well, we're moving in the right direction. Are we moving in the right direction? get on with it. And a few, as you pointed out, Councillor Bentley, some worry about debt, but they see it as household debt. They don't see it as intergenerational investment in the district that we're building. The exciting bit that I'm getting feedback, and I think it was a very wise decision of us to go out after the election with the special consultative procedure, which was one of our exceptions that we took out about our waters. And I was at a function for Fulton Hogan the other night, who said, "Can't believe how innovative this council is." And we don't thank our staff, we don't congratulate ourselves for actually looking at different ways of doing things. And 57% of our funding for our infrastructure is coming from other partners. That's unparalleled around New Zealand. So I congratulate you for this. It has a focus for me that I really like about localism. It says we will shape our community together, and we'll do it with the community. And that's also something that we're going against the trend actually with central government about infrastructure and waters. So congratulations. And it's all captured in this document, and it's simple to read, it's quite beautiful, and we're moving forward. So I have great pride actually in thanking the staff and our community for receiving and voting positively for this annual plan. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you for allowing me another comment, Your Worship. I just wanted to respond to something Councillor Gall raised about urgency over the museum. And there seems to have been a number of people sitting here for a long time, and not just councillors, but a number of people who have had earmuffs on when Henry and Stuart have sat there and kept us updated with what a major project that museum is, and that it has moved with all the urgency that such a major Grade 1 listed heritage building demands. So the process is all ready to go. It just needs the final piece of the funding puzzle sorted, and the work on that is ongoing. And I'm absolutely confident, as I know you are, Your Worship, that we will get there. So there has been no lack of urgency on that project whatsoever.
Appears to be no more Councillor Rotorua.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just thinking, sitting here listening, and when you mentioned about the percentage of support that we get in terms of dollars from our other partners, and people will not give, partners don't come to the fore if they don't believe there's a vision to support. So if there's a compelling vision, which obviously there is, because people don't put their dollars up if they don't think there's good leadership, if they don't think there's a compelling vision, if they don't think that we've got the opportunity to marshal further resources. So that comes back, in no short measure, I believe, to the context that you have, and others of us around the table as well. But somebody has to get out there and hustle. And it's as basic as that, Reid. I don't mean to be rude to our partners when I say that, but if someone's not out there doing the rounds, saying, hey, this is the benefit for our community, for our future generations, for our mokos yet to be born, somebody's got to go out there, somebody's doing it. And that's why we have that great percentage of external partner support. So we shouldn't underestimate that, and long may that continue, because should that disappear, my God, then the ratepayers will have something to worry about in the future. So I just wanted to put that on the table, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Right, I'm now going to move. We've got a mover, Councillor Rotorua Tate, and seconded Councillor Karen Hunt, that the Council adopts the annual plan 2019-20, noting that the plan reflects minor variations to Year 2 of the long-term plan 2018-2028, based on project timing. Of Councillor Kent, yes, Councillor Kent. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary?
No.
Call for a show of hands. All those in favour, raise your hands. Opposed? And we'll record that. Did you get them? You wish your names to be in the report?
Yes, please.
Just wait till those names. I'll repeat the names. It's Councillor Gould, Councillor Bentley and Councillor Kawate.
No, Kumar.
What did I say? Raj Kumar. Sorry, Raj. Oh, Raj, sorry. The motion is carried. Councillor Gould and Councillor Bentley. Now we'll move to the recommendation for rate setting council rates for the year 1st of July 2019 to June 2020. Do I have a mover that the report setting council rates for the year 2019 to June 2020 be received? Moved, Councillor Sturt, second, Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Una, did you want to? Oh, right. Thomas, you just stayed.
I'll stay here, Your Worship. Again, a rather in-depth discussion last week. Just a reminder to Council as well that prior to Christmas we did undertake a rating review, and one of the outcomes of that rating review was obviously looking at obviously affordability is always an issue, but with regards to how fixed charges land. And so as we have set the rates or proposed the rates for you to set, we have therefore looked at that affordability and that distribution, and in particular around how we have applied the general rate. And just a reminder therefore that the UAGC has not gone up as a result of that, and so therefore the general rate component falls on capital value. And obviously the other portion of the significant part of the rate increase is related to the wastewater activity, and in particular the bringing on board the operations of the new wastewater treatment plant out at Rotorua, with approximately 70% of the operating costs of that plant being borne by all the other ratepayers in the Rotorua district connected to a wastewater scheme, but particularly not that one.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Sturt.
Madam Chair, I could refer people to page 115, and there's the example of the ratings impact, and I just want to go through what I did was through the information that I, as a real estate agent, have access to, went through and just had a look at some key properties and what the impact of 4.8 through to 5.2 would have on these properties. The lower one is, you could say, is Fordlands and parts of Kotu and some parts of Ngongataha. The lower CV at 325 is these properties in Malfoy Road, which are home units. They're 2-bedroom or they're rentals, or a block of flats that have individual titles. They are in that 325. The 447 is Glenholme, parts of Malfoy Road, Pukehangi, those types of areas. The 685 area, you're talking about the top end of Pukehangi Road, the Matapo Aves. The 750 is Te Ao Tonga and parts of Linmore. The western side of Alwhata and the $1 million properties are in the Kawau Point area. Some of the properties here, there's not many of those. So I just thought to outline to colleagues the impact of $98 a year on the general rate is less than $2 a week. And I think what we asked our staff to do was to look at the impact of the 5.1, which was highlighted, see what they could do in terms of transposing that, and they've come back with that 4.9. However, there is one area that I am really concerned about, and I know that Councillor Gould has been working on it. I know that others around the table have been working on it, is the impact of accommodation being provided in the residential areas. It is becoming an absolute pain in the neck. Councillor Gould took over an issue when I had to go and have some treatment of a property in Pegasus Drive where there are sometimes 18 people staying at a particular property. Well, the impact on our sewage, on our water, on our refuse, on all the impacts of that property as opposed to the next door neighbour who is a husband and wife who've got a little dog, and the impact on their way of life and their impact on their life has been horrendous. And Your Worship, this is an issue that the next council is going to have to grapple with. It's not easy. I know that Carl has been around to see not only the people that Councillor Gould and I have been dealing with, but many, many others. The 100 days is just a joke. That's every weekend, so that's happening anyway. The 100 days is not sustainable. So I think Local Government New Zealand, as a body, we need to work alongside the Minister to find out, because the impact on the rental market has been profound in Rotorua, with over 1,200 now properties been coming out of the rental pool and now going into this temporary accommodation pool. So I just raised that as an issue that we need to keep in the back of our mind. I don't know how staff are handling it, Thomas, in terms of the impact under the district plan. That's the only way they can. But, you know, we've now got, Madam Chair, we've now got a driveway with a house there, and the neighbours all around are taking the overflow from the house at the back. So, you know, it's in places where people bought to be in a residential setting, not to have a motel next door to them. So I raised that. I don't want to harp on about it, but I just wondered if Thomas could give us an update on where we're heading with this issue, and then maybe the CEO could give us a way forward and to the future in terms of what we need to address.
Do you think it's...
Well, I think it's going to have an impact, because these people need to be rated higher, because they're having a huge impact.
I get where you're coming from, but today we're really adopting the rates. We're not having the debate, which I think we do need to have, on Airbnb and how we collect it and the numbers that we've got and the impact on housing. But that's not really today's debate. But we note your concerns. We all share those concerns. Thomas, do you want to give any comment back on that? It's not really part of our rate setting.
I'm happy to just provide a quick update. Just again, reminder to all councillors that there was a change with regards to the district plan, and I understand the number was 12. So therefore, if there is any resident that has concern regarding their neighbour or a property in the area that is being used for short-term accommodation and it exceeds 12, to make contact with us, and our regulatory team will obviously go and have a talk to the owner and take appropriate action. And that also therefore flows through to the change of the rating of that property as well, or can and usually does. With regards to the Airbnb and the book a batch problem, we are aware of it. We've done quite a bit of work in the background trying to identify properties and a way of where we can do monthly updates of understanding what's happening. The problem we've run into is just the accuracy of some of that data. Obviously, it's not as accurate as we'd like it to be from an enforcement perspective. And so we're taking a little bit of a slower approach with regards to that, just slowly talking to homeowners, particularly at the heavier end of usage. And also we do constantly receive feedback from the community with regards to bringing properties to our attention, and as soon as that's done, we also make contact with the owner and start asking questions. And as a result, we have a steady flow of properties that can change rating to commercial. But in saying that as well, we do have some properties that go the other way as well, with regards to some people therefore choosing to change the use of their property. But probably more topical with regards to the 100-day approach. That's probably a discussion for either the next annual plan, if the council wishes to do so, or be a minimum there for the next LTP, which is obviously therefore 18 months away, and that's what we're looking to do.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. with regard to this rate increase that we're proposing, as somebody pointed out, it averages out at $2.50 per week per property. An awful lot of our ratepayers are actually superannuants, and this $2.50 is actually 3 times the increase that they've had to their benefit.
And at the workshops, that was certainly canvassed. It wasn't a view held by only some individuals. We all felt that concern, and that was particularly why I believe Councillor Kent held the costs to council down, and that's reflected in the 4.9%. Any other comments? Thomas, I'm very aware of the stress that you've been put through by us, but that's our job as politicians, to try to keep rates to an affordable level. And so this is less than what we signalled in the long-term plan, and I congratulate you for that, and I'm aware that that does have an impact on levels of service, capacity for council to respond to the next bright idea that someone might have. But also when we look at the rates table, I understand and I see debate that in 2018 our rates sat mid-pack of all TLAs. So of 67 TLAs, we were 37. We were in the middle. So we're not disproportionately higher to other districts our size. Do you want to speak to that a little, Thomas? It's not like taking the Auckland property and saying if you own a property there, this is what you'd pay at our rates increase.
Certainly, Your Worship. I think it's important to recognise that rates increases and obviously the pressure that goes on the organisation to try and keep it as low as possible is very real. And so I think in particular for where we are with regards to our heavy investment into infrastructure, and I think in this example of this year with regards to, if you look at the increase for an average residential house, if you were to look at half that increase of about $50 for those properties that get $100, half of that is actually related to a new wastewater treatment plant. And so it kind of puts into context, obviously, therefore, of the work that council is doing and how it is being funded. So it was recognised in this case that water quality was extremely important for the district. A new wastewater treatment plant had been built. It also recognised the fact that the community that obviously benefits from the connection of that scheme, obviously with regards to the cost was couldn't bear the full cost of that operation, but it recognises the wider benefit of water quality to the wider district, and so therefore we did have to spread that cost across the wider district. So if you take some of those elements out, like the new wastewater treatment plant, out of the mix, the rate increase therefore with regards to the actual underlying cost of council is actually therefore very, very small, and that's obviously what we strive to do. It's just in particular when you have some of these large projects coming on board, we do therefore face slightly larger increases than we hope to have. But in the wider context of what you said, Your Worship, yes, we are about mid-pack, and obviously we don't strive to move higher than that. And ultimately, we would also target and look to keeping rates as low and as affordable as we possibly can, and that's what we do every year.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I am going to support the motion. But you know, sometimes I sit here when we're discussing our rates, and I think, well, how low can we go? But it was not all that many years ago when there was a fixation in council here to keep the rates low, and we deferred repairs and maintenance, and that's come home to bite us in the bum now. So you know, we do need to be mindful. Yes, I'm very aware that we have a low-wage local economy. We've got people on a fixed-term income. You know, and including obviously a big number of our superannuants. But we have to be aware that low rates come at a cost at some stage further down the track. in terms of repairs and maintenance. And as we know that from what we're experiencing right now. So, but I will support it, and I'm pleased that we've been able to keep, and Councillor Kent has always been on us, keep those rates low, but we have to be aware that, we do have a work program, and we want to make sure that we get through that, and in future years, we can keep the rates low, but we do have to do what we have to do in terms of our work program as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I'm glad that Thomas highlighted the investment in the wastewater treatment plant, and I found the conversations at the engagement sessions very, very useful. One in particular was a gentleman with properties here and in Auckland who liked to draw a comparison between the values of each, and but when you discussed whether you're comparing apples with apples, in Auckland he pays a separate charge for water, and when that was pointed out, quickly the concern about Rotorua went away. We also, as others have alluded to, realise that in the past we haven't had the same sensitivity to our environment, that we now have the same awareness of the effects of climate change, and that these investments need to be made, whereas, as my colleague Councillor Rotorua Tate has said, we've perhaps not had that focus in the past. So the crunch has come really with climate change and with the environment and conditions around sustainably living in a sensitive environment that we all treasure, and so we have to make that investment. So I'll be in support.
Kumar, you had a comment or a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I'll be supporting the rates increase. However, my one question is, for us to get it to 4.9% this year, I see that we have rephased quite a lot of key projects over the coming years. What happens when we introduce those in those years? Do we then impose a higher rate, or we look at it accordingly to how much our expenses are then? I mean, how can we then keep it under 5% or low?
Thomas, could you explain the long-term plan and the financial strategy that we're working within?
Yep. So first of all, I think when the challenge was set to us to get below 5.1, it was actually achieved by looking at our operating expenditure and squeezing that. And obviously we only brought, while it'll have an impact on obviously our operations, it was an impact that the organisation felt was appropriate for the time, and so therefore doesn't put anything at risk. And that's how it was achieved. With regards to the phasing of the capital works program, you're also aware, Councillor, that there's a large portion of work coming from this financial year that we're about to finish that into next year. So we're always going to have projects that straddle financial years. The end of the year, that balance date is just a mythical line in the sand, and projects will always straddle it. And what we've done with regards to the capital works program for next year, we did have a good hard look at some of those rather large projects, such as the museum, the Sir Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre, the lakefront, the Waka Forest in particular. We sat down with the external project managers and asked them there was some conservatism there, and with regards to the timing, and to actually give us a good, robust cash flow of how those projects were expected to be delivered. And what we found in some cases of those projects, what we found was we were a little bit optimistic of how much we thought we could achieve on projects like Sir Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre and the museum, and so therefore just rephased it slightly based on where we were and the fact that we're going to go out to market shortly and appoint contractors. Whereas other projects such as the lakefront and Waka Forest, those projects are going really well, and we actually brought expenditure forward from other years. And it was just that rebalancing that we did. It was not done to manage a rates increase or any other reason, and all those movements, being moving projects out or moving projects forward, has been done in the context of Council's long-term plan and its financial strategy, and to ensure therefore that overall we still stay within the strategy going forward.
Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, by legislation, government legislation, we have to set rates. Yes, we have to set the dates. That's 4 times a year. Yes, we have to set penalties for people who don't pay their rates on time. And yes, we do have to set the discount if people want to pay lump sum payment up front. The annual plan shows that the rates this year, which this council collects, is including water rates, is just over 97 million, 92 plus 5 million from water rates. So a lot of, with the rate increase, a percentage of this population will not appreciate it, but everybody will have to pay it.
Do you have a cool?
I think it needs to be clarified what we're talking about in those, in particular the table that we've all been referring to. That is general rates.
That's right.
It's a general rate increase. The fixed charges are user charges. I don't see why elderly members of our community should subsidise people who use services far greater than they do, and those elderly people subsidise them. So if you don't want fixed charges and want them to come into the general rate, the people that you're concerned about on fixed incomes will pay more.
They will.
So you can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, we're talking general rates here. We're not talking fixed charges. Fixed charges are user paid charges because they're either connected to a sewerage scheme, they either get a water supply, they either use or don't use the refuse system, etc., etc. So I just think that needs to be clarified because some people just don't understand where we're heading. Or I think they don't.
Is there any other discussion or debate? Councillor Bentley?
Yeah, just a question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question for Thomas. You have a penalty of late payment. I believe it's around about 10% for early payment. Could we not also adopt the 10% discount?
Who would pay for that?
Look, going forward, if council wishes to increase the prompt payment discount, it can do so. Obviously, by increasing the discount, that means less revenue to council. So obviously, that less revenue has to be collected somehow. And so, in doing so, you would therefore push that rates revenue to those that choose not to pay earlier. So,
as a follow-up, you would also have the use of that money the full 12 months before it's expected.
That's true.
That is true, but obviously the difference in our borrowing costs, as an example, 10-year money at the moment costs council about 2.9% per annum versus giving a 10% discount. There's approximately 7.1% difference that has to be paid for by someone else.
Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on the point Councillor Bentley raises, I think it's probably one that we would have to go out for consultation on. But I also am of the opinion that would penalise the people who are least able to pay, the people on low incomes and pensions, because they're not going to be in a position to pay up front. Yeah, it's just my early thoughts on that one. Yeah.
Thomas, where we've got set the discount for early payment, also, I think this comes out in our communications after today about being able to apply for the rates rebate. So I think that's very important for those on the fixed incomes, so that they know. And if we could use the Te Tato magazine, Tato, that's one that's getting great pickup in the community, and they'll know how I can go and get my rebate. So I think that would be a huge help for those on a fixed income. Any further discussion? Well, I have just one question before we finish and put the motion. Can you explain the contribution that comes from other partners? Because for every dollar council spends, what would happen to our major projects if we didn't get that amount of partnering funding? Well, it's not understood in the community. It's not at all.
No, and I guess, Your Worship, it's going a little bit back to the overall how the annual plan is comprised. It's an annual plan and built on an LTP that focuses significantly on an investment into infrastructure, as well as obviously projects of great amenity value to our community. And I guess the example I gave at the SPNF last week was we do have 4 projects that are currently progressing extremely well, which is the museum, Sir Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre, the lakefront, and the Whakarewarewa Forest project. Combined, they total approximately $100 million, and of that, external parties are contributing approximately, I think, 57% of that. And so it is obviously therefore an example of people wishing to partner into the investment into Rotorua. They're obviously seeing benefit of that. And if that wasn't there, then obviously each of those projects would have to reduce significantly in scope, because obviously we wouldn't be in a position to fund that level of investment. And so that would be the impact. So I think it's great, reflecting on the fact that there's such heavy support and investment, co-investment partnering with us.
Thank you. And what would happen if we held rates at CPI?
We talked about this at the time of the long-term plan, and so the long-term plan itself is again built on the back that we wish to look after the infrastructure that we currently have in place, and we need to grow and continue to invest in that for the people of Rotorua. And predominantly the rates increases at the start of the LTP in the first 5 years reflects that investment. And while the underlying budgets and plans had inflation factors of 1.8 and 1.9% built into them with regards to cost increases, the additional requirement from rates is a reflection of the investment that's required into that infrastructure, the need to have more money to pay for the renewal of them. And so that is ultimately what we're doing with regards to the direction of the LTP. And the annual plan is just a continuation of that.
Thank you. There appears to be no more discussion. I'm going to move to that council. I don't need to read it all out, I don't think. No, as listed. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Right, we now will have a break, but before that we'll need a resolution to go into public excluded, and the items are the lakefront construction and the Rotorua Economic Development Board appointments. You move, thank you. Councillor Stewart, seconded. Councillor Rowe Kawatate. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried.